Let's be real, life is messy. We all wrestle with loneliness, guilt, and shame.
Having a supportive community and the right resources can make all the difference.
That's why we started Healing Unscripted.
We're just three friends on a mission to bring hope and healing.
Whether you're struggling yourself or walking alongside someone who is,
we're diving deep into the hard stuff.
With insightful guests, real talk,
and a whole lot of heart. Join us on Healing Unscripted.
Hey everybody, I'm Jen. Welcome back to Healing Unscripted. I am really excited about today's episode, so here we go.
Hi, I'm Liana. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Laura. We would like to ask you guys once again, we're going to keep reminding you, please like, share, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to us.
So today I'm really excited to have Chief Mark Beckett here in our podcast. Anyways, Chief Mark Beckett. Do you go by Chief? Do you make people say Chief?
You know I hate it. No, I'm Mark.
I mean, if I were a chief, I would probably
you would make us all call you
first name.
Liana.
Just Chief. No, not Liana, just Chief.
Just Chief?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Good luck with that.
I hate it. I never wanted to be a chief, so let's go with Mark.
Thanks for coming today.
Yes.
I mean, I have been hearing your name just pop up everywhere. I mean, ever since we started this podcast, which has been amazing.
In a good light.
In a good light. But meeting all the people that we've met in the mental health world and the recovery world. And we've even met a couple times, and I still didn't know it was the Chief Mark Beckett that I've been hearing about. So when I saw you, I was like, oh my gosh, now, because it's just been like, Mark Beckett, you're so involved and you're so passionate. And I just, everybody loves you. And the work that you've been doing has been amazing. So let's talk about what brought you here to Steamboat. Yeah. I mean, like how it all started.
How it all started? Oh, wow. That's where we want to begin.
When were you born?
I was born in Tucson, Arizona. What brought me to Steamboat, it kind of is in the middle of the story probably, but as you know, I spent a career in Arizona and as a police officer there, and in 2021 lost our oldest child to suicide and had a great support system there. We really got a lot of, I'll say, support again from my work and my wife's work and our friends. But it was, it hurt. Like everywhere we went there was a memory of Ryan.
Yeah.
And everything there really sucked for me. My wife had a different experience where she had a hard time of letting go of those things. But really what happened was I knew the previous chief and there was an opportunity that came up to move here. And I had never even heard of Steamboat before. I saw a post on social media and messaged her and said, that place looks really cool, man. And she said, I got a job if you want it. So I just kind of through happenstance came here. And actually when I flew up here to test for the position, I remember getting off the plane at the Yampa airport. And I'd never been in an airplane where you like walk off the stairs before.
Right. Uh-huh.
And I remember stepping out and seeing the hills and or the mountains right there, and I thought of Ryan, and I actually kind of took a step aside and started crying, and I was like, all right, this is something. So my wife was really hesitant to come up here until she came up here. She actually came up 2 or 3 days later with my other 2 kids, and she within like 12 hours she was like, yeah, this is the place.
Oh,
so here we are.
Yay.
We're so glad that you guys decided to do that. But when you stepped down from the plane on the steps, were you like, what kind of podunk?
No, man, it was beautiful.
No, because the scenery.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah. I grew up in upstate New York, and teenager, I grew up backpacking in the Adirondacks. So like it took my breath away when I got here. Yeah. And I hadn't even gotten to Steamboat proper. That was just the mountains around Hayden. So,
yeah. That's so good. I'm glad you had that good first impression.
Yeah.
Was that a crazy transition though from the job that you were in to a small town community vibe?
Yeah, I mean, that part was in a good way. I came from the Phoenix metro area. I worked in gang enforcement and organized crime, violent crime my whole career. So going from that and on the heels of George Floyd and the riots, group I worked in, we were part of those riots in the Phoenix and Scottsdale and those areas, and it was radical. So coming here where people actually like the cops was crazy.
Oh.
I remember like the first time someone recognized me as I was a commander then, and they like shook my hand. I was like, this is a trip, man. I used to have to tell my kids not to tell their friends that their dad's a cop.
I know, that's so
So
sad.
Yeah,
Sad.
that's the state of the country. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so yeah, it's awesome. Steamboat, transitioning from that role to kind of an administrative role, especially the chief, was challenging.
Mm.
Definitely not
That
as
is
much fun.
different.
Yeah,
A
definitely not as much
different
fun.
kind of fun.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No.
It's just-
Yes.
it's more rewarding.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say it's fun. I sit in office 90% of the time, so
Yeah.
not very much
And you're
fun.
used to being out with the action and
Chase
Yeah.
gangsters, man. That's what I did for my whole career. I appreciate being here. I think having the support from the community, my young officers, they don't all necessarily understand how lucky they are to be someplace where the community supports them. And it's a unique thing here. I'm grateful for it. And the partnerships that we have up here are really unique and special.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I ask you how long you waited after your son had passed?
Yeah, that's-
What was your, because I've been told you're supposed to wait like a year before you make any major changes after
Oh,
a big loss.
Okay.
Because you can sometimes make you shouldn't just get a divorce. You
Mhm.
shouldn't just move.
Right.
You shouldn't just, so.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, that's a great question because we did exactly what you're not supposed to do. So this opportunity came up about, I want to try to get this right, maybe 6 months after we lost Ryan, and I was working with a clinician who was phenomenal. Really, really did a lot to help me move forward. You don't ever move past a suicide like that, but move forward. And I remember going to her name's Jen, and I went to Jen during a session, and I said, this thing's happening. And the full story, what happened was I saw the post, texted the previous chief, looked at it with my wife. She was like, no way we can afford to live in Steamboat, and shut it down. And like a month later on my Instagram feed, it popped up again. And I called her again. It was the night before the posting closed. And I said, hey, this thing popped up again. And she's like, screw it, put in for it. Let's see what happens. And I went to my session with my clinician, and I told her about it. And she's like, hey, this thing, life put this in front of you. That something like this doesn't pop up twice in a row unless it's for a reason. And you should think about it. And so, yes, definitely did what they say you shouldn't do, but it worked out. And I'm not religious, but I do believe in a higher power. And something put this in front of us, and it brought me here. And I think here I sit with you guys having this discussion and the things we're doing in the community with behavioral health. And I thought I was here to be part of a police department and build a police department. And it turns out doing that, but I'm going to do this also.
I love it. It's kind of a healing process for you and your family too, getting to help people with their mental health issues.
Yeah, it's really hard. I'm not going to lie. I mean, my wife gave me the typical wife speech a few weeks ago, and I came home one night. I think it was soon after I talked to you the first time, Leon, and I was like, man, this is like just hard, for to talk about Ryan all the time, to have these discussions. It's hard. And she gave me some version of suck it up. That's what you're here for. And she's like, you just suck it up.
I like
you got to
her.
do it. Yeah. She's a nurse, so she doesn't screw around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good so far.
because Ryan's story is actually, it's powerful and it's difficult. Like just the whole journey leading up.
Yeah, it resonates up here. We really, Ryan was always different, and I'm going to share a part of it that I don't talk about publicly. If you guys ever hear me speak publicly, Ryan is Jack, because Ryan came out as transgender when they were 14 years old, and we struggled with Ryan for most of their life. And when Ryan was 12, we really started seeing some serious behavioral issues coming up. And we got a crash course in the behavioral health system in Arizona and juvenile behavioral health system, which is not great. I want to use the word broken because I think it's broken everywhere in our country. I've never heard of any place where it's good.
Yeah.
And we found out that when you're 12 years old, you can't get resources. They won't even talk about taking you into a facility. And we had crisis services at our house, probably half a dozen times, if not more, over a period of 2.5 years. And it wasn't until Ryan was 13 that we were able to start addressing some of the behavioral health issues and the suicidal ideations and the suicide attempts. And we, from 12 to 15, when Ryan took their life, they were in acute care facilities 4 or 5 times and 2 residential facilities. And the first one was a facility in Reno, Nevada. And this is what really resonates with me when I talk to parents here, because my wife and I had to let Ryan get transported to this facility while they were suicidal, tried to jump out of an ambulance driving to Reno, and was there for a couple months, and things were definitely got better. And we went to pick Ryan up because insurance ran out. And we were trying to, or we had Ryan in a called a DBT, dialectic behavioral therapy program, which is really a 6-month or more program. Our insurance was really good insurance, but once Ryan was stabilized and was about 2 months, they said, we're not paying anymore. So we drove up to Reno, picked Ryan up. And as we were driving back, I remember we stopped at a hotel one night. Ryan didn't have any swimsuit or anything, but they wanted to go swimming. So I went out to the motel pool with Ryan and started swimming. And Ryan came out as transgender to me, and to my wife, and said they want to go by Jack. So no hesitation from us. You know, I grew up with a gay sister. We are very supportive. So we went right to that, came back to Phoenix and got Ryan a haircut, and Ryan was Jack from that point. And we had a lot of support from our family and friends, and that was good. But we saw that system fail just time and time again. You know, we get stable, then become unstable, crisis team at the house, go to an acute care facility, get released 3 to 5 days later, don't get the right care. Eventually we found a residential facility in Prescott, Arizona, that had also an education component to it, because every time Ryan would go to a facility, an acute care facility, they would fall further and further behind in school. We were failing, and it just all compounds, you know, and nothing ever really worked. And I think that facility in Prescott was great, that they only served kids that were were foster kids. So I had to fight with my insurance at the time, and it was Cigna Insurance, and I'll say they were great. They gave us like an advocate that helped me try to come up with solutions, and we were able to finally get an exception. And Ryan went to this facility for it was probably 2 or 3 months, but then they again got stabilized, and they said it's too much. I mean, these things are incredibly expensive.
Yeah,
Right.
So and that was the last time Ryan was in a facility, and unfortunately took their life later on that year.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. It's nothing, you know, it's a nightmare for anyone.
Yeah.
And you don't ever recover from it. You just kind of, I was talking to some parents of a suicide victim this morning, actually. And I said, you just take one step, you know, you have to choose to put one foot in front of the other every day. And I guess for me, the only, you know, what came out of it and what I said very quickly was that some good has to come from this. And for me, you know,
Yeah.
and I think we're doing good for sure. The fact that we're having this discussion is good.
Right.
Yes.
I know.
And
finding
Ryan
purpose.
was your oldest?
Ryan was our oldest. Yeah.
And you said you had 2 younger?
Yep. Hannah and Evan. Hannah's 16 now and Evan's 13.
Okay.
And their Steamboat's been great. Evan, I mean, you know, he's a 13-year-old boy. That kid, he was 11 when he came here, 10, 11, yeah. And just jumped right into snowboarding, has loved it. He's thriving. Hannah took a little longer to adjust, but she's doing great. It's been really good for us. It definitely has done a lot of the things we hoped it would
Good.
for the family.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Obviously, though, that entire experience changed not only everything about you, but I'm sure how you do your job.
Yeah, it changed the focus. I mean, when I came here, even to like a year ago, I was really focused on, you know, building a department and changing the culture of a police department and changing our staffing and getting us caught up with modern policing. And last year, the year of 19 suicides in the Yampa Valley, it kind of changed. Well, it didn't kind of change that, you know. And I think I saw the frustrations of our partners, our community partners, working so hard to address the suicide problem and just behavioral health, and then to have such an incredible number of suicides after so much hard work. I'm really close friends with several, you know, Molly Lotz and Marty Smith, Mindy Marriott, and, you know, to have these things happen and with all the work that people are putting into it, it's like,
Yeah.
this is broken. You know, we have to change something, and it's not a lack of effort or passion from these groups. It's just the Valley needs more than what we can offer, and we need to change the discussion a little bit.
What is your vision for that then? I'm sure you've thought about that.
Yeah, of course, I have.
You had to have.
That's
Yeah.
why he's here.
I mean, you've seen all the working parts with all these
Right.
different resources. So what does that look like to
And
you?
your background.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't have any mental health formal background. I can, I'm happy to talk about the things we were learning in Mesa through critical incidents and police, but we have a model here. I've had the fortune of I ended up being nominated to a board position on the state oversight board. It's called Colorado Post for law enforcement, and I met a Chief Greg Daly, who's the Avon police chief, and ended up through happenstance learned of Paradise Paradox, the movie about suicide and
Which is
behavioral
an amazing documentary.
it is.
Everybody should go watch it and download it. It's free.
It's spot on.
It is spot on.
So when I saw Greg was part of that, I reached out to him and I said, man, like there's literally so many similarities between what happened in Eagle County and what's happening here, and to the point where they had these nonprofits working for 16 years. They had a different name, but they had the exact same mission. There was a reps. There was, they had the exact same thing, and they were working in silos and passionate and doing this good work. And then they had this teenage girl kill herself, and she was, very, very much known in the community. That Greg knew her. Her mom worked for the healthcare system, and that was the one that galvanized them. There's always one that galvanizes people, and that was the one. And so these groups came together and they worked with Val Healthcare, and they created they had a really outstanding philanthropic donor, the Precourts, and they were able to raise money to fund and build the Precourt Healing Center, and they're still raising $100 million to sustain that I think they have enough money to sustain it for a decade, I think.
Wow. My gosh.
That's amazing.
We can do that here.
Wow.
if
We
want
could
to
totally.
sing.
Yeah, I'll tell you about a conversation what Tracy Hyatt and I are working on with many others. But yeah, so there's a model there. So my vision, that's an acute care facility. They've got 28 beds, half for youth, half for adult. They're working on developing intensive outpatient services. All the things that we need here that we don't have here.
Mm-hmm.
And the next step, I think, is working with them to figure out how we can supplement them. I originally thought, hey, let's do that. Like, that looks great. Talking to them, meeting with them. I don't know if that is necessarily the need we have here. I think there's, that might be a partnership we can work with and then build complementary resources up here. And I'm like, this is the cop, guys. I'm not a social worker. I don't have any healthcare background, but I have experience
I
with
think
it.
you have all the
experience.
background, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe you're not professionally trained in each of these areas, but you have the experience. You know what you're talking
You've
about.
seen how it doesn't work.
You've lived it out.
I've seen how it doesn't work, and my strengths in what I've done is I'm a team builder. I did that in my last career. I do that here. Yeah, I know how to see skill, and I know how to put it together and to get people to start working together. And that's my vision. Really long answer, but if we could work with Val Healthcare, UC Health, Northwest Colorado Health, whomever up here to work with Val Healthcare, create some complementary services where we have access to what they have down there. They would have access to stuff up here. We have huge gaps in residential treatment. We have huge gaps in intensive outpatient therapy. I was interested when I learned from them that we have a huge gap in Alzheimer's patients, but like memory care. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. Neurodeficit or neurodisorder options and programs. These are all things that we need here. Substance abuse, God knows we need a substance
Yes.
abuse program here.
Right.
Like, we're doing some stuff, but yeah, so I think there's an opportunity to partner with them, and God knows that Steamboat's got philanthropy. We've got donors. There's a lot of
Yes.
money here, just like down there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are, and I'm not going to take credit for any of this. People were just frustrated, and people like Tracy Hyatt finally said,
Yeah.
I can put this together. We can do this. And it's starting to come together. We're going down there on next week to meet with their folks at Precourt to see what they've done, what they're learning, how we can pair that with services up here. And, hopefully a year down the road, we actually have something
Mhm.
moving forward here, which would be phenomenal.
It really
Would
would
be.
be. And
Yeah.
you don't have to really go and reinvent the entire wheel. Like,
Yeah.
you know what's
No.
working there. So let's go talk to people.
Yeah,
and
that's
make
the
it happen.
best thing.
Yeah.
To not have to come up and not only to not have to recreate the wheel, but we have the opportunity to learn from the things that they've learned and what's worked and what
What
hasn't
doesn't?
worked. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, it's an incredible opportunity. And they're close, it's such a similar community to ours
Yeah.
and geographically close to us. It's a great
And the
opportunity.
cool thing is they're like our neighbors. So everybody
Yeah.
wants to help their neighbors. And I mean, your family was on board, but then also Doug Scheer,
Mhm.
he's now the sheriff and he's a part of this community. He's passionate about it. And for the first time, everybody's like coming together and meeting in the middle for this amazing cause. And then you got people like Mindy Marriott that have grown up here. And now she's in the position that she is.
Tracy, too, talking about the Hope Initiative,
Mhm.
creating positions like the community safety officers,
Yeah, that's
trying
cool.
to get community members trained up so that they can create this army of people that just have this awareness that we don't have. But like you said, they may not know what to do, but there's things that they can grab onto, maybe with this Hope Initiative, that lets them step into a position of, I can do this or I
Yeah,
can
I
do
can't
that.
do much, but I took a class and I know I can.
Get someone to who they need to speak with.
Yep. Yeah, that
So
was
that's a
brilliant.
big step.
It's a huge step, and I think it's giving people the power to actually to move to action and to
Yes,
steal your
right.
word. I mean that we've been normalizing the wrong thing for too many times. We're normalizing this cycle of suicide, of crisis, and yeah, something bad happens and we talk about it. We need to do something,
Yeah.
and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks goes by, and we talk about money, blah blah blah, and then life goes on, and
Mhm.
and we're normalizing, or we have normalized that cycle. Now people are tired of it, and I think that's great. We're starting to move to action. Hope Initiative, this idea of having a community peer team that engages or is out there for somebody before they get into crisis. We do in this community. I came from a valley of 2.8 million or whatever. This community does a really good job of addressing crisis at a grassroots level. Whether you're talking about Rock County Crisis Support, the Community Crisis Response Team, reps, Warhorse Ranch. Like, we've got all these great grassroots ways to address crisis. This Hope Initiative is an opportunity to engage with people before they're in crisis and to get them to services. The gaps occur between crisis and acute care.
Right.
How do what do we do? And then after acute care, so we call it an M1. But if we work with somebody and they're suicidal or they're a danger to themselves or whatever, and they get placed on M1, then they get held for 72 hours. They go to the hospital. They end up going to Fort Collins, Denver, Grand Junction, wherever. And then when they come back here, we have no services.
Right.
Like, and
Mhm.
and then so, we really, which is what Doug, the sheriff, is really trying to work on with the mental health response team. My wife is part of that project. But it's still like there's not enough there. There's no intensive outpatient program. I shouldn't say no, but there's not enough intensive outpatient programs. There's not enough intermediate programs. And then we don't really have access to the highest level of care, residential treatment, residential therapy. And again, like my experience with Ryan, we end up having to look at sending people to the other side of the state or to other
Right.
states. And
Yeah.
Which is a whole other issue.
it's a whole nother
Well,
problem.
Yeah.
if you're going, and especially if you're a teen
Mm-hmm.
and you're going through already a mental crisis and you're unsure of what's happening to you, but then to get taken so far away from your family and your support
Comfort
system
zone.
and your friends and everything I mean, that's
Not the
definitely
answer.
broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the answer.
No,
Mhm.
those acute care facilities, they're there for a reason. And if they work right, you go there, you work with clinicians, you work with psychiatrists, you balance your meds, you're observed to make sure that the meds that they stabilize, because that there's danger when you do that.
Yes. Right.
And they're there for a reason, but they don't work if you don't have some sort of intermediate care to follow up with it, or some sort of follow-up care where you can continue to engage. And I mean, they're depressing. You're going to trigger me because I have a lot of my trauma personally is memories of taking Ryan to those places, and it's horrible. They're not nice. It's not a reflection of the people. I mean, they have an incredibly difficult job, but it's traumatic. Pre-court, and if you guys ever get an opportunity to, it's different. It's an acute care facility, but it's different. Like, they've really been thoughtful about how you go into the facility, what it looks like, what it feels like and sounds like, the meals, the diet, exercise. Like, they really are doing a 360 approach to that, and it's different, and I'd never seen anything like it before, and I think it's a great model.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. That movie did a really good job at explaining that it's almost like instead of a hospital, It's like a hotel or like a spa. Like everybody comes in, the environment's nice, the rooms are nice.
Yeah.
They have classes for, this or that. They have great
Keep
food.
talking about the one in Arizona, though.
Oh,
aren't you?
Well, I'm talking.
Or are you
The
talking
ones
about
that
the one in
were
Eagle?
traumatic were Arizona. Pre-court is the one in Eagle.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is.
And
Okay.
That's
that one, I mean, like the walls are, they have murals on the walls when you're walking through the halls. The bedrooms are nicer for sure. They've got a gym. They cook all their meals there in house. It really is a great approach. They've got, I don't know how they did it, but they've got a number of psychiatrists and psychologists on staff that you never hear of in a facility, and they're there in small Eagle County.
Right.
It really is. It's a special program.
Wow.
That's
And-
amazing that they were able to staff that many and also put them on salary and then find them a place to live. Because
Yeah.
that's a big issue here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's going to be one of our talking
Yep.
points on Monday. I
Mhm.
imagine is
Yeah.
figuring out how they did that. But
Yeah.
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 That's a big one.
That's
I mean, you can't expect people to come here and then shove them in an old hotel room
Right.
and then be like, "Oh, this is your home and this is what you
Thrive.
deserve."
Yeah,
Yeah.
Go
That's-
work
thrive.
for us and thrive.
that's
In
the
your
housing
one
discussion
room.
now here. Yeah,
Good.
you definitely you need something better than that for most people.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Because they have to want to come here.
What's another one of your big bullet point topics you wanted to talk about?
I think the other one would be the public safety component, because that's really, where I can speak intelligently about is the impact that these things have on my folks and on the first responders, and I think it bleeds over to the community too. Early on last year, as we were getting these insane number of suicides, was the realization that it has a profound impact on the community and has a profound impact on my officers and on the firefighters. But in the example I give to people, when I worked for Mesa, Arizona, we had 800 officers. It's a city of 500,000 people. And in my 21 years there, I probably went to maybe 3 or 4 suicides. And even then, I was probably a supervisor for some of those. I only ever actually was face to face with the gruesome nature of suicides a handful of times over an entire career. I have an officer who he's comfortable with me talking about him now, Lane Lee, who has been with us for 2 years, and he has been on, I believe, 6 or 7 suicides and then 1 other violent crime in 2 years. And if I was to describe some of these things, people don't understand what that looks like and how horrible it is to see these things. Mindy understands that. These different grassroots groups understand that. People don't understand that. So I have officers, and Lane is by no means the exception. We have these officers, and in Arizona, in Mesa, we would have maybe 50 officers working on on a shift throughout the entire city. So the odds of me seeing one of some, you see one, and you don't know the people.
Right.
Right.
Here, these guys are seeing them over and over again, and they know the people. There's an example here where it was somebody who we worked with who had attempted suicide, and our officers and firefighters they're showing up on scene with that, and they have to face that. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, we had the young lady commit suicide at a bridge. She hung herself from a bridge. I don't like to give details, but it's relevant. And the next week, and Lane was on that one, and the next week, he was on a call with the same officer who was on that call with him for another juvenile who had left home and was suicidal. And the dad said, "I think she went to the bridge." And Lane and this officer had to go back to that bridge. The other officer couldn't even go down there, and Lane, like he's telling me about it afterwards. He's like, "Man, he was choking, he was struggling, but he knew he had to do it." That's the impact here, and Mindy and these different folks, they know, not only are they seeing, Mindy and her team saw 19 suicides last year, which is
Yeah.
insane,
Yes.
but then they know the people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It just is different here. It hits different in the small town when we're so close.
What
It
kind
definitely
of
does.
outreach are your first responders, your officers getting for these types of situations that they're dealing with?
We've got Route County Crisis Support is a phenomenal. When you say outreach, you mean intervention for themselves. Yeah. We've got access to Route County Crisis Support, which has been around for some time now. Phenomenal resource for first responders. And they hook us up with clinicians here in the community. They do, Molly Lotz works at the hospital. She has the ability to do EMDR like the next day or sometimes the same day with officers to really start processing these things.
That's good.
So we actually have more resources here than I had in Arizona. We definitely talk about mental health in Arizona, but it's a more formal system. It takes more to get to it. It usually is we're usually told we have to do it. It's not something that we engage with. I think the one thing I will give myself a little pat on the shoulder for here is normalizing the mental health discussion in the police department. And so my guys, they're not afraid to talk about it. Lane, if you were to get Lane in here, he'll tell you, like he tells you, oh yeah, I did this today, I did this today.
We want to get Lane in here.
Lane would be awesome.
Them about him.
Lane is driven with this right now, has no background in it at all other than through police, and he is angry. And I think, it's time for people to hear Lane's voice and the voice of the parents. I met, I'm going to go off script, but I want to talk about it. I met with Andy McNay's parents this morning, Tim and Gal, and they reached out to me a couple weeks ago and wanted to have coffee, and they're processing it. That suicide happened earlier this year or last year, and they want to talk about it, and it's the same thing. They're experiencing what I experienced, so they say they want to talk. What can we do? They want action. They came up here from Wisconsin to do a fundraiser for Andy yesterday. And they're going to do it every year. Yesterday's was a private fundraiser, but they're going to do more in the future. They're going to try to turn it into an annual thing. But we have these people who want to talk and who are tired of kind of just the status quo, and it's time to start listening.
Yep.
Yes.
They all have stories. And when they ask me, what can we do? I said, it's your story. It's I'm really, if we're being honest, I'm only relevant to the discussion here because of my story and because I started telling it. If I hadn't been, I would just be the next chief. I think it's time for people to start telling their stories, and Lane's got a hell of a story. There's a lot to talk about here.
Okay. Sounds good.
Well, I think it's awesome that you're kind of changing the culture of giving your officers the ability, the tools, the leadership to actually talk about some of this hard stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. When I worked in Mesa, the division I worked at, we were involved in a lot of critical incidents. We had different task forces. They were always violent crime task forces. I had really good friends who were involved in multiple shootings, and also other incidents. And we kind of changed the narrative of what a critical incident was. It used to just be, if you're in a shooting, it's a critical incident. It turns out that sometimes you're in a shooting and it's not even that big of a deal, because if I'm part of a fugitive task force and I'm going after a really bad guy and I know what the mission is and I know that this guy's probably going to put up a fight and then he pulls a gun on you or whatever, it actually isn't really that traumatic because you're just doing your job.
Yeah.
Whereas when you show up on a baby drowning, which was common in Arizona, or these other things, way more traumatic. And for a long time, law enforcement wasn't treating those as critical incidents.
Right.
Mesa has done a great job of flipping that script. And now we're like, hey, it's not just officers involved shootings. It's all of these other things. And developing a program, Mesa just had, they have an in-house psychologist now that is a consultant, works with them 100% of the time. Great program. I think bringing that up here for me was important, and it's been really well received. Sometimes with the younger officers, it's interesting to me because they think I'm being overbearing. I've brought up a clinician that we worked with in Arizona a couple times for help on things, and they're like, I had one former employee come to me and say, you got to stop talking about this stuff, enough, like let it go. And I was like, nah, man, you don't know what you're talking about. And he pushed back on me, and I said, here's what you need to understand. You don't have to listen. I'm not going to force you to listen. I'm going to force you to sit in the room. You don't have to engage. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But what you should consider is, I'm coming to you with 22, 23 years of experience and in things that they have no idea about.
Right.
So it's hard to sometimes get that message across, but by and large, I think our folks are really doing a great job. Dawn Smith, who you guys had on here, is doing a phenomenal job. It's definitely becoming a more normal thing to talk about.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's
finally.
necessary.
Yeah.
It is absolutely necessary.
Yeah. And we can do it here. That's the thing. That's part of my hope for all of this, because we're such a small community. We can actually change course. If we were in Phoenix, you're not changing anything down there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
But here we can do it.
What other big thing do you want us to be aware of?
I think it's just continuing the discussion and making sure we support these groups. We're having a lot of this higher level discussion of resources, but it should not take away from reps and Hope Initiative and Warhorse and RCCS, like these are things that really make this community special.
Yeah.
The fact that we have so many nonprofits in this community for other things also. I mean, it's really what makes this community strong is the relationships we have and the partnerships we have. And I know, and I'm sure Mindy talked to you guys about it, they're hurting. They're all hurting. And it's a money thing, but it's also a support thing. Mindy just lost her kind of right-hand gal to it's good for her. She's moving into a different career. But it's hard to get support, and reps, you see the stickers and you see the signs and you know the name. What you don't always realize is that's Mindy and like 3 people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we need, that would be my encouragement to the community is this is not just about money. This is not just about building a brick and mortar building.
Mm-hmm.
This is about coming out and actually engaging and not just, and I've gotten a ton of letters. I've gotten a ton of voicemails for anybody who did. I am very grateful for all the support. Now it's time to do something with it, and so
he's going to answer back every single one by one.
I do respond to all of them. I do respond to all of them.
And it's not all the different nonprofits in the community trying to go at it alone. I don't know if we've kind of heard from everybody. I'm sure you've seen it too, where rather than going at it alone, we're stronger in numbers and we're trying to do this together.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I was just in a meeting this afternoon with RCCS and then a bunch of the folks from the school and then first responders and creating, Marnie, God bless her, she's taking a concept from fire and police called incident command. She just retired from the fire department, so she's doing this. She's another one. Write that one down. Marnie Smith, get her on
she
here.
needs to be on.
Yeah. But she's applying this model of incident command to crisis response now. So we're going to have an automatic dispatch when we get like a deceased person, like an unattended death or a suicide or anything like that. This group will automatically get dispatched as part of her or someone from RCCS will automatically be notified. So we won't be relying on a first responder to say, should we get somebody here? Should we ask the family? They'll automatically be getting notified and then they can engage.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they showed up right on the scene when her dad passed away this Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a really good job.
Yeah.
We were very impressed. I was impressed.
Yeah. We were too.
It's a great, I say RCCS. RCCS is really, Route County Crisis Support is kind of the first responder component, and then they have the community crisis response team.
Because then they could do like the wraparound program, like the aftercare, and because officers, they need to do their job. They need to be available.
Right.
And I'm sure they would want to say, oh, I wonder how so-and-so is doing. But I mean, they have a lot to do. So this program is just absolutely amazing. It's kind of like what Dawn wants to do as well, right? It's like the wraparound and help people find the resources and then go back around and check up with these people and say, hey, did you happen to call any of those resources? No. Okay. What can we do to help? Right. No. What else do you need?
My guys will do that. And that's a passion thing. I try to engage with parents of suicide victims, which is really hard for me to do, but I do it because I know how it would have felt for me to have gone through that. There's a lot of passion here. So, and they're doing that on their own. That's not a protocol right now. We're trying to make it so it is a protocol because you can't catch all of them. And when we want to make sure we are catching all of them. So I will say there's gaps. The program that the sheriff's working on is a phenomenal program. The reality is, and I'll say something that will probably piss off some people and make them be angry at Mark Beckett, which is fine. I'm used to that.
Mark Bennett.
Yeah. Matt Bennett, everybody.
Matt Bennett.
Our official crisis response is not great. And it's
meaning like what, like response time or
like crisis response teams, like the formal crisis, not reps or CCRT, like the formal crisis response teams. We have great people and there are some great people, but the program is not a great program. And my officers there are many times where they'll be on a scene and they'll call for help and they get somebody in Grand Junction. And I'll share a personal experience with it. The one that really changed it for me here, aside from the number, was the personal one was Melanie Nemenitis. She committed suicide earlier this year. And she was a young lady that lived in our community for a long time, really struggled with mental illness. And again, her parents told me I'm allowed to talk about it. I connected with her and most of my guys knew her because she was a frequent flyer for us. We were always working with her. She would hear voices. And I remember the first time I was working patrol and I got a call with her. And I went and knocked on her door. She said people were in her apartment trying to kill her. We knew who she was, so I was aware of it. I ended up going in, and as I'm talking to her, she's hearing voices. And she's fine. She was a sweetheart, she's like a gentle soul, just a really unique person. And I called for support. I made a phone call to a crisis response, and I got somebody that was in another city. And I told him what was going on. I said, listen, I'm with this gal. She's hearing voices. She's in her apartment. She's called 911 like 8 times today. We need to do something more than this. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, listen, buddy, I'm calling you. You know, like, you tell me what we should do.
This isn't my job.
Yeah.
Who are you sending?
Yeah. Well, and I said that. I said, you need to come out here. And he goes, well, I'm in Grand Junction and I'm covering the on-call today. I'm like, okay, well, what's the plan? Like, you're our mental health provider. What do we do? And he goes, well, put me on the phone with her. And he talked to her for like 45 minutes, and he gets back on the phone with me and says, well, we've got a safety plan. She's safe. And I was pissed. And I told him, I'm like, man, it's not acceptable. And she was fine. She like had a plan and she saw a doctor later, her clinician later that week. But a year later, she commits suicide. And, you know, we're failing people like that. And it's not that organization's fault. And I hope they hear me when I say that, because I'm not blaming any person. It's the system.
Mm-hmm,
you know, they're overworked. They're stretched too thin. You know, how do you provide 24/7 service when there's a handful of people working for you? But the tough part of this conversation and where I won't ever back down is tough shit. Time to do better. Like, we have to do better than that. And we do. You know, there's no to sit here and think that we're doing a great job with that component. We're lying to ourselves. We're not doing a great job with that. And that's an area we need to work on. Yeah. And I'll challenge you and I'll say, take it a step further. Every person in this town can say something or do something.
Yep.
But we need more. What we need are clinicians. We need services. You know, I think that, again, I said it before, the grassroots component of this town is unparalleled. And I mean that. We need more psychiatrists and we need more psychologists. We need more therapists. And when you talk to these people and they tell you that it takes 6 months to get into a therapist here, and then they're paying $200 an hour.
Yeah.
You know, what do we, that's an area that we got to do better at, you know, and how do we, I would say to our 13,500 community members, how do we bring people in? We need to bring more resources here to us, because they're not going to drive to Denver. It's not realistic. Telehealth it's great for some things. It's not great for therapy and for clinical intervention. So we got to do better there. So I think, again, we do great with our folks who are just jumping this Peer Team, the Hope Initiative, grassroots stuff. But the skilled component of a clinician, we don't have enough of here. And you know, that's, again, if I could pick out areas where we have to improve, that's one of them. There's a lot of talk of the housing and what are we going to do for housing? One of the challenges, and they use the police department, is that our housing that we give to people in other cities and some of the stuff we're even doing here, they're like small apartment style housings. You know, the reality is when you're trying to attract a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a doctor, I'm having a hell of a time. I've got 2 sergeants vacancies right now. I can't get, not only can I not fill, I'm not getting any interest in, because I'm trying to draw people who are halfway through their career or later in their career, have experience. They're going to have families. Well, nobody wants to live in an apartment. Like, they're not going to volunteer to move to a 500 square foot apartment. You know, they want a home. It's the American dream, or at least a townhome or something that's sustainable. And that's the harder part of this housing discussion, is it's not just the number of units, it's the quality of housing and what do people actually want.
Yeah.
So I think, we, rather than the houses, what we may want to start considering is that we have to subsidize it somehow and find a way to help people afford to live here.
Right.
So we're never going to get away from the cost of living here.
No.
That's the reality of life in resort towns. But finding a way to get the blue collar workers or professionals up here and where they can afford to live here, that I think is an important discussion. And I hope that doesn't get me in trouble, because I was totally unauthorized by anybody in the city.
That's all right.
That is Mark Beckett, not Chief Beckett. I want to be clear.
Is
That was Matt Bennett.
Yeah, Matt Bennett, thank you.
I mean, I know doctors who haven't moved here because we've tried to get doctors in our practice and they say, I can't find the home that I want, like the home that I have on the Front Range or the land that I have so I can have my animals. I can't afford it up there, so I'm not coming.
My wife works in the women's clinic, and they've got great doctors there. She was close to a doctor who was really, really good. and she moved to the Front Range. She couldn't afford it here.
Yeah.
You know, we're losing these skilled people who we need here, and they can't afford to live. The only reason I can afford to live here is I draw a pension from Arizona. So, and my pension, for the record, 100% goes to my mortgage and still doesn't cover all of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to live here if it wasn't for that. Nobody can. I've tried to recruit people from Arizona who I know to come up here, and they're like, how can we afford it?
Why would we? Yeah. That would be sacrificing their way of life for
a job.
A job.
A job, yeah. And for me, it was worth it because it's for the family, and we're doing all these things.
It is a great place to live.
It is.
I mean, it is, and it's incomparable for a lot of places. I mean, I'm going to say I'm a single mom. I do what I do because it's worth raising my kids here for them to be safe.
Yeah.
And happy for the most part. Is it true that we're in the suicide belt?
Yeah, it's Parasite. That's the movie.
Yeah. So
I mean,
explain the suicide belt to me, because somebody was asking me, well, what's a suicide belt? I'm like, I don't know.
It's like a map in a region, right?
The Rocky Mountains.
Yeah, it's basically the Rocky Mountain resort town. So it's not, I mean, they've also talked about Mammoth Mountain and some of the other resort communities across the country, but it's these places that are, they're at altitude, they're expensive to live in. I think the movie does a great job of talking about some of that. It's interesting. I come from a biology background. That's actually what my degree is in. So I understand the physiology a little bit. It intrigues me, the discussion of altitude and medication and the way that they're trying to figure out how that impacts it, because there seems to be a tie to that. But the affordability, the pressure of living here. People want to live here, but they have to work 4 jobs to live here. And then the pressure to recreate. And then with recreation and the competitiveness up here comes that pressure. That's the winter sports club discussion and Andy, and that mental health component that we see in the competitive sports up here is that constant pressure to do something and do something and do something and be better. I think it all ties together. Yeah. It's a beautiful place, but there is what I would call there's an ugly underbelly to living up here, and substance abuse. Like you got to say
the party culture.
Yeah. When I thought it was clever when I first heard that we're a drinking town with a ski problem, but man, it's true.
True.
And when I do work patrol, I often will work night shifts, and the number of substance abuse related alcohol, but substance related calls that we get it blows my mind. And it is a huge problem in this community and with our youth. I mean, don't get me started on the youth. I'll go for another hour, but the substance abuse, that's a whole nother program.
Yeah.
And the parents will get angry at me again. But I mean, substance abuse in this community is, I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
That's a lot to save coming from Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, it's different.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't see a lot of meth here, but I'm telling you, there's things that are happening in this community that people don't know about.
Sure.
And they got their heads in the sand because it's so pretty. But my guys are interdicting meth. We just did a meth seizure last week or the week before. We've prosecuted fentanyl death overdose cases. There's a lot going on in this community that people don't aware about.
Right. My question for you is, whenever we wrap up our episodes, we're like, call 988 if you're in crisis. We have reps here, all of the things. But what do you suggest when someone's in crisis and you roll up on a call like that? What is your go-to first thing?
I mean, I actually will agree. Those groups are great groups to reach out to. 988. The reality is police, we have gotten passably good at dealing with crisis, but it's not what we do.
Right.
It's never been what we do. And I think people get
therapists or counselors.
No, in
That's
fact,
what Dawn was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people have gotten frustrated. So to answer your question, I'll say 988 reps, RCCS, the Hope Initiative is going to get they've got a hotline they're going to be starting. Those are great options, and do it before you're in crisis if you can. If you're having a bad day and you know that you struggle with this, then engage before you're in crisis. One of the things I'll tell you, and I'll make it my parting point, is people get angry at us because they want us to save somebody. So they'll call us when someone's suicidal. There's a gal that roasted me on social media recently, and I totally understand her frustration. She had a sister who was suicidal and in an apartment. And law enforcement's changed. Back in the day, we're going to save this person. We kick a door in. Well, as often as not, we end up shooting the person because they don't want us there. And where we have evolved in law enforcement. We recognize the reality is suicide is not illegal. We've got a really limited ability to deal with that. And when we push it, we actually make it worse. And that's why you're seeing, a lot of times when people will call us and, someone will call a crisis hotline and they'll be like, I'm going to kill myself, just really generically. They call us and they're said, this person's suicidal. And they say, if you come in there, they're going to kill you. Right. They got a gun or whatever. Well, we don't even go anymore. We'll call that person. We'll see if we can get them to come meet us. We try, but we don't go kicking in doors anymore. We'll knock on doors sometimes. If we knock on a door and someone tells us, get the heck out of here, I don't want your help, we leave. We leave.
Yeah.
There's literally no good that comes from us pushing that, because that's where the phrase suicide by cop came from. The only shooting I was ever involved in when I was a very young officer was a suicide by cop. It was a kid who was suicidal. So the reality is we don't do that anymore. And that's like, I really want the community to understand what a bad spot that puts our officers in. My thing took me a decade to get past. It's hard for people to understand that, because they see the cops and they're like, you guys have to help us.
Yeah.
That's not what we do.
Yeah.
That's not something we deal with.
It's not your job
so
to
glad you
fix
said that.
the mental health problems or the suicide ideology. Yeah. But it is going to be the community's problem and our responsibility to step up and stand behind these resources and the Hope Initiative and REPS and all these amazing organizations that are coming together, and support them financially, support them by telling people about them and making that the big hype, because those are the people, those are the programs that are going to actually be the ones to be able to help. Yeah.
And I know I just said this is going to be my last thing, but this is going to be my last thing, I swear.
One more thing.
Yeah. Eagle County, that program, they got, I will say they were frustrated with their access to crisis services. And they took all these groups and they created their own formal crisis services, and they do it to this day. The Val Healthcare out of Precourt, their crisis community response team, or crisis response team, is a grassroots team that started with something like what we're talking about here, evolved into having a clinician, and they actually respond out to scenes like the services do up here. But it's housed there, it's from there, it's a local resource. And again, if Mark Beckett could pick something that we could work on, that's like, when I heard that and I saw the passion, I was like, that's awesome, man. Because they're right there. They're in the police stations. They're in the hospital. Yeah. A local,
and there's a clinician
resource. There's a clinician. So, anyway.
I love that you came here. I love that job opportunity landed on your feet twice for no reason. And I'm glad you and your wife and your family said yes to this journey. I mean, obviously God has a bigger purpose for you, and I'm excited to see what happens with that.
I'm grateful for the community, and I'm grateful for the support.
We're grateful for you. Yeah. I don't.
That makes me want to cry, but thank you.
I like your boldness. I think it's time for no more like not so polite, not so walking on eggshells. Like, it's time for fierce and fast.
Yeah, I've got a lot of support from the community and from the city. I'll just do a small shout out, because I did go to my boss and I said, I'm going to start saying these things, and he's supportive. I'll tread lightly with some topics, but I'm not going to pull punches anymore. I don't think anybody should.
Well, thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
We're so lucky to have Chief here, and we're going to keep pushing the importance of communication on this subject, 988 reps, and more to come on the Hope Initiative.
August 31st is our car wash for drug overdose awareness. That'll be at Yamphy Valley Tires. And September 20th, we want to start to promote. It's going to be Rally for Recovery. It'll be at the high school. We're not sure of time, but that's a Saturday, September 20th. We hope you all can join us for that. Be sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe once again. And thank you. It was so nice to meet you.
It was great being here. I appreciate it.
Your story is incredible. And thanks
for your
time.
And very inspiring.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share it.
Well, we can't wait to see what becomes of the Hope Initiative. So
yeah.
And remember, everybody, all of these resources are on our podcast. At the end of it, just check them out.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Guys.